Ladies, let's get one thing straight from the start. Men are not as complicated as you've been told. They're not emotionally shut down. They're not avoiding you on purpose. And no, they don't need to be decoded like some cryptic message from outer space. What they need, what they crave, is a woman who talks to them in a way that makes them feel respected, wanted, and understood, not tested, judged, or second-guessed. Today, I'm going to rip the mask off modern relationship miscommunication and tell you point blank how men really want you to talk to them in the bedroom, in the living room, and everywhere in between. 1. Talk to him like a man, not a project. Stop trying to fix him with your words. When you say things like, "Why don't you open up more?" You never listen. I just think it's weird that you're not inspiring connection. You're making him feel like he's failing some invisible test. Men aren't drawn to women who nitpick. They're drawn to women who speak to their potential without cutting down their current state. Speak to his strength. Remind him who he is when he's at his best. Watch how fast he starts showing up as that man consistently. 2. Confidence is sexy. Neediness is not. A woman who knows her worth doesn't need to chase, beg, or constantly ask where things are going. She speaks with clarity, not fear. Instead of saying, "Do you still love me?" say, "I love how we vibe when we're both feeling connected. Let's not lose that." That tells him, "I see you, I value this, and I expect greatness between us." It's confident. It's emotionally intelligent, and it turns him on mentally and physically. 3. Don't weaponize communication. Seduce with it. The fastest way to shut a man down is to bring up every past mistake, every insecurity, and every emotional slip in a single conversation. That's not connection. That's combat. Real influence comes from soft power, from understanding when to challenge and when to comfort, from knowing that sometimes the best way to change the conversation is to change the tone, not the topic. Your voice should feel like a place he wants to come home to, not a battlefield he dreads walking into. 4. In the bedroom, direct, playful, irresistible. Here's the truth. Men love direction when it's delivered with desire, not pressure. Don't say, "You never do this." Say, "You know what I love? When you pin me down and whisper that filthy stuff in my ear." That's not criticism. That's an invitation. It tells him exactly what you want without making him feel like he's already failed. Your words can be a weapon or they can be a turn on. Choose wisely. 5. Respect is his love language. A man can be wildly in love with you, but if he doesn't feel respected when you talk to him, that love starts to retreat. Talk to him like you talk to a king you admire, not a child you're correcting. Use your words to elevate him, even in disagreement. You'll get more honesty, more devotion, and a man who wants to be better, not because you demanded it, but because he chooses to. Ladies, stop waiting for a man to change before you talk to him differently. Talk to him the way a powerful, high-value woman does. With clarity, with confidence, with seductive energy and emotional precision. You're not here to nag, you're here to inspire. You're not here to chase, you're here to attract. And you're not here to control, you're here to connect with fire. So go out there and speak like the woman who knows exactly what she brings to the table. And watch how fast the right man pulls up a chair. Ever notice how a man lights up when someone believes in him? How his energy shifts when he feels seen, not for his flaws but for his potential. This is the secret that most people overlook in relationships and intimacy. Men are deeply moved by words that reflect strength, not judgment. And if you want to build a connection that's magnetic, passionate, and lasting, you've got to understand that your voice holds incredible influence, not through control but through the way you speak to who he can be. Not just who he is in a bad moment. Let's be real. Most men walk around with their guard up. Not because they're cold, not because they don't care, but because so much of their adult life has trained them to hide emotion and stay in control. So when a woman approaches them with criticism disguised as communication, even with good intentions, it feels like another attack. "Why don't you talk more? You never think about how I feel. I just don't understand how you can act like that." These phrases don't invite intimacy, they trigger defense. Not because the man doesn't want to fix things, but because he feels misunderstood at the root. What works instead? Imagine looking at your man even after a disagreement, and saying, I know you want to show up strong for us, and I know you've got it in you. That's why I want to work through this together. That kind of communication is radically different. You're not denying that something is wrong, but you're addressing him as a capable, powerful partner, not a broken one. This is exactly what reawakens a man's emotional investment, because now you're not just his critic, you're his ally. In intimacy, this matters even more. A man who feels criticized or second-guessed in the bedroom will quietly shut down. He might go through the motions, but the spark disappears. But when you speak to his strength, I love how you take control like that. It turns me on when you're so confident. He doesn't just perform, he connects. He engages. He wants to please you, not because you demanded it, but because your words brought out the best in him. This applies even outside the bedroom. Let's say he's had a rough week. You can either pile on by saying you never make time for me anymore, or you can shift everything with, I know you've been pushing hard, and I appreciate how much you carry. I'm here when you're ready to reset with me. One of those sentences leads to distance. The other, it leads to closeness, and often a man re-engaging because he feels emotionally safe around you. When you speak to his strength, you're not pretending everything's perfect. You're simply choosing to communicate in a way that builds, not breaks. And in that energy, intimacy thrives, not just physically, but emotionally. It's not about inflating his ego. It's about seeing the core of who he is and reflecting it back with your words. That's when he leans in. That's when he opens up. That's when trust, attraction, and real connection come alive. There's a specific type of woman who walks into a room and immediately grabs a man's full attention, not because of what she's wearing or how she looks, but because of the energy she carries. It's not desperate, it's not performative, and it's not chasing, it's quiet confidence. And in relationships, this energy doesn't just attract, it transforms the entire dynamic. Because men don't respond to emotional pressure. They respond to emotional certainty. One of the fastest ways to shift your connection with a man is to move from needing constant reassurance to embodying your worth. Insecure communication sounds like, do you still love me, or where is this going? Or why don't you compliment me like you used to? But confident communication, the kind that penetrates through his defenses and lands, sounds like, I love what we're building. I'm excited for more, or I know my value and I'm looking for depth, not games. When a man hears that, he feels something rare. A woman who isn't looking for him to fill a hole in her self-esteem. And that is magnetic, because when you stop needing constant confirmation, he stops feeling emotionally crowded. He starts leaning in instead of pulling away. Because he doesn't feel like he's being dragged into a performance of affection. He feels like he's with someone who already knows she's a prize, with or without him. This plays out even more powerfully in the bedroom. When a woman brings neediness into sex, looking for validation, approval, or performance, it creates invisible pressure. He can feel it even if she doesn't say it. It's in the way she asks, did you like that? Or waits for praise afterward, like it's a report card. It might seem small, but over time it changes the entire energy. Intimacy becomes performance, not connection. Now flip that. Imagine a woman who walks into the bedroom with curiosity, playfulness, and zero self-doubt. Who initiates with, I've been thinking about doing this to you all day, or who moans and whispers what she wants, not because she's trying to impress, but because she's already turned on by herself. That's confidence. That's desire without demand. That's the energy that makes a man crave her, not just sexually, but emotionally. And it's not about arrogance or being hard to get. It's about knowing that you don't have to earn love by chasing it. You express love because it overflows from you. And when a man senses that, he steps into his masculine. He wants to meet you there. He doesn't just want to sleep with you. He wants to show up for you. A confident woman doesn't need to constantly ask for the status of the relationship. She expresses what she desires, stands by her values, and lets actions, not anxiety, tell the story. And that balance between emotional groundedness and feminine allure. It's the exact chemistry that makes a man feel like he's with a woman who knows exactly who she is and who he never wants to lose. There's a reason some conversations leave a man turned off, tuned out, or completely shut down, while others light him up, draw him in, and make him feel more deeply connected than he's been in months. The difference isn't the subject, it's the style. How you communicate with a man is often more powerful than what you're actually saying, and nowhere is this more obvious than in moments of intimacy and emotional tension. Too many women have been taught to speak their truth by unloading everything at once, every frustration, every fear, every past disappointment in one intense emotional download. And while it might feel good to get it out, to a man, that kind of communication doesn't feel like vulnerability. It feels like an ambush. His instinct, protect, defend, retreat, not because he's cold, because he doesn't feel emotionally safe in that moment. Now imagine saying the same thing, same core message, but in a completely different tone. One that says, I'm here with you, I want to get closer to you, I'm not your enemy. That's soft power. That's the kind of emotional intelligence that draws a man in, even in conflict. When you come from a place of connection instead of attack, he doesn't brace himself, he listens, because now you're not coming at him, you're inviting him. This same principle flips everything in the bedroom. When a woman uses words like weapons, why don't you ever try something new? You're not even paying attention to me right now. We're just doing the same thing again. He shuts down not just sexually, but emotionally. He starts to second guess himself. He hesitates. He disconnects. And even if he doesn't say it out loud, he's no longer operating from desire. He's operating from damage control. But when you replace pressure with play, everything changes. I want you to kiss me like you did that night in the car. Let's try something wild tonight. No rules. The way you take control sometimes, it drives me crazy. These are not demands. They're invitations. They spark curiosity, not shame. They're laced with erotic tension, not judgment. And that's what builds the kind of bedroom dynamic that keeps passion alive for years, not weeks. Men respond to cues that feel safe, sexy, and empowering. It's not about being fake or walking on eggshells. It's about understanding timing, tone, and intention. When you weaponize communication, you push him into survival mode. But when you seduce with your words, you speak directly to the part of him that wants to lead, to love, to perform, and to protect. Not because he has to, because he's inspired to. What most women don't realize is that their voice is a tool of deep influence. It can either escalate chaos or expand closeness. And when you learn how to speak desire without blame, how to express needs without shame, and how to correct without cutting, you stop sounding like someone keeping score and start sounding like someone he never wants to stop listening to. Respect. It's not a bonus. It's not optional. For men, it's the baseline of emotional attraction, the foundation beneath love, intimacy, and long-term connection. You can tell a man you love him 100 times, but if he doesn't feel respected when you talk to him, those words will eventually lose their meaning. And this is where so many relationships start to unravel. Not because love disappears, but because respect slowly erodes in the way partners speak to each other. Most women don't mean to be disrespectful. They're just frustrated, hurt, or feeling unheard. But what comes out in those emotionally charged moments is often sharp, reactive, and laced with judgment. Phrases like, you never think, you're acting like a child, or why can't you just be a man, cut deeper than most people realize. Because what a man hears underneath those words is, you're not good enough. I don't believe in you. You're failing me. That doesn't bring him closer. It shuts him down or pushes him away. Not because he's fragile, but because his core need to feel honored in the relationship has just been attacked. Now flip the script. Think about how powerful it is when a man is going through something, he's stressed, distracted, or not himself, and instead of criticizing, you say, I know things are heavy right now, but I still see the man underneath it, and I believe in him. That kind of respect, especially when it's hard to give, doesn't just soften his heart, it awakens his masculinity, it reminds him of who he is, and in return, it makes him want to rise, not out of guilt, but out of pride. Respect also drives deeper intimacy. A man who feels respected emotionally will be more open, more vulnerable, and more physically expressive. But when he feels belittled or constantly corrected, he retreats. Even in sex, he starts overthinking, pulling back, playing it safe, or avoiding intimacy altogether. Not because he's bored, but because he doesn't feel fully wanted by the person who says they love him. That disconnection starts with words. Not just the words you say, but how you say them, when you say them, and what emotion is behind them. Respect in intimacy isn't just about saying thank you or complimenting him after sex. It's in the moments when you guide without shaming, when you express what you want without making him feel like he got it wrong. I love when you touch me here is respect. You always miss the spot is criticism. The first builds desire, the second builds resentment. And over time, that difference changes everything. It's easy to show respect when things are smooth, but the real test and the real magic happens when things are tense. When you're disappointed, hurt, or frustrated, and you still choose to speak in a way that affirms his dignity. That's what earns his trust. That's what makes him emotionally safe enough to give you all of him. Not just his time or attention, but his deepest loyalty, love, and passion. There's a moment in every relationship when things start to feel a little off. The connection is still there, but the conversations get colder. Arguments stretch longer. Intimacy fades to routine. And the mistake many women make in those moments is reaching for more control, more force, more pressure. We need to talk. You never listen. Why aren't you putting in effort? These statements might be honest, but to a man, they don't feel like invitations to connect. They feel like emotional handcuffs. Men don't respond well to pressure. Not in the boardroom, not in the bedroom, and definitely not in a relationship. When a man feels emotionally pushed or cornered, his instinct isn't to lean in, it's to pull away, even if he still cares. And that's where the power of soft influence comes in. Because while pressure feels like control, soft power feels like choice. And when a man feels like he's choosing to step up, to engage, to love more fully, he becomes all in. Soft power doesn't mean being weak or passive. It means being emotionally calibrated. It's knowing how to say something in a way that lands rather than explodes. For example, instead of saying, "You never open up to me," you say, "I love when you let me in. It makes me feel closer to you." That's not manipulation. That's emotional intelligence. It's a signal that says, "I want more of that, not less of you." In intimacy, soft power is the difference between performance and passion. When a woman comes at a man with frustration about sex, "Why aren't you trying? You always rush," or "Are you even into this?" it puts him on defense. And a man on defense doesn't perform better. He detaches. He doubts himself. He stops initiating. But when you guide him with desire instead of critique, "I love it when you slow down like that. It drives me crazy when you tease me first." He gets the message without the ego bruise. He's turned on and tuned in. Soft power is also about timing. Bringing up a deep issue when he's stressed, distracted, or exhausted is a recipe for disconnection. But choosing a calm moment when you're both relaxed and open creates space for real conversation. And when you frame the conversation with warmth, not tension, you invite him to speak without fear of being judged or fixed. You make it safe for him to feel, and when a man feels safe, he gives you more than just answers. He gives you access to parts of him no one else gets. The most powerful women in relationships aren't the loudest or most demanding. They're the ones who understand when to speak, how to speak, and what emotion their words carry. They hold standards, not ultimatums. They create influence through connection, not control. And as a result, the men in their lives don't just stay, they show up fully, deeply, and willingly. Not because they were forced, because they were drawn. There's something undeniably magnetic about a woman who leads with inspiration instead of instruction. A woman who doesn't try to manage every detail of the relationship, but instead calls a man into his greatness by the way she moves, speaks, and believes in him. This isn't about playing small or staying silent. It's about choosing a style of communication and connection that fuels a man's desire to rise. Not because he's being told what to do, but because he wants to meet her where she already stands. Men don't fall deeply in love with women who constantly correct them. They fall for the woman who sees something powerful in them, even when they're off track, and speaks to that version of them with certainty. The difference is subtle but game-changing. A managing woman says you should really start doing this. Why don't you ever, or if you don't fix this, I don't know what's gonna happen. It's pressure-based. It makes a man feel like a project or an employee being evaluated. And nothing kills attraction faster than that emotional role reversal. Because when he feels micromanaged, he doesn't feel masculine, he feels reduced. But when a woman inspires instead of instructs, her energy draws out his leadership, his confidence, and his natural drive to protect and provide. She might say, I know you've got a lot on your plate, but I trust how you handle things. Or, I miss that version of you that used to light up when talking about your goals. I want to hear about that again. That kind of communication doesn't demand change. It evokes it, reminds him of who he was before the stress, before the distractions, before the doubt, and it makes him want to reconnect with that man. For himself, not just for her. In the realm of intimacy, this is just as powerful. Managing energy in the bedroom looks like coaching in the middle of the act, sighing with disappointment, or giving cold feedback afterward. It can be subtle, but a man can feel it. He senses when he's being evaluated instead of enjoyed, and that pressure makes him overthink. But inspiration in intimacy, that's the moan that lets him know he's doing it right. That's the whispered request that drips with craving, not critique. That's the playful challenge that invites him to lead, explore, and dominate. Not because you told him to, but because he feels safe to do so in your presence. Men crave to be seen by women who recognize their potential without needing to police it. That's what separates a relationship that drains from one that expands. When a woman leads with belief instead of control, a man naturally steps into his best self, more generous, more focused, more emotionally invested. Not because she begged for change, but because she made him feel trusted, desired, and respected in a way that turned his masculine energy on instead of shutting it down.